He's also one of the earliest artists to popularize Caribbean music throughout the UK, but also throughout the world. Please welcome Eddy Grant. Just a quick little recap. You know, Eddy rose to fame in the mid-1960s as a founding member of one of Britain's first racially diverse groups, the Equals. He built his own recording studio, he founded his own record label, and he had massive success as a solo artist with his song Electric Avenue, which was nominated for a Grammy, and it was absolutely massive. In the early 1990s, he also invented his own musical genre, ring bang. But the thing that's really important for me is that he did it in his own way, completely DIY. And he really channels a strong socio-political consciousness, and he also celebrates Black musicianship, achievements, and culture throughout his work. But also on top of that, not only is he a songwriter, singer, multi-instrumentalist, studio owner, label owner, he's also an entrepreneur, a rule breaker, a family man, and an all-around extraordinary person. So I'm just thrilled to have you here with me tonight.
I am so used to having a microphone in my hand. I can't bear the thought of having a microphone on my body. It's just one of those things. A funny guy. Thank you all for coming tonight. I hope you'll find out something that you didn't know before.
Sure we will. You have many stories to tell. Too many to fit into 2 hours. We had dinner the other night, and it was 4 hours of stories, which was just absolutely glorious.
Boring.
No, not at all, not at all, not at all. Now, you moved over here from your native Guyana in 1960 when you were 12 years old. What was the music scene like here in the UK when you entered, and what kind of music did you gravitate towards?
Well, first of all, let me tell you about where I came from.
Sure, yeah, let's do that.
Which is Plaisance.
We're going way back.
Plaisance in Guyana is a little village, and my dad was a fantastic trumpet player, one of the best probably in the Caribbean. And I heard this stuff from the time I was born. So it enabled me to gravitate very easily to the music of the Caribbean, primarily Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, with the Mighty Sparrow being, he was the man. I mean, no matter what the history books say, Sparrow was the man. There were always someone before him, but Sparrow was the man. He gave masculinity in the Caribbean a meaning. So he was the guy that I crossed over to. In other words, from being a baby, I'm hearing these rude songs, and at the time they were rude, and I would be singing them or humming them and getting slapped by the grown-up. What you doing singing about pussy? And you know, Sparrow could really sing about that part of the world. So I got lots of slaps for Sparrow. But he became a part of me. And I learned how to rap, because people tend to think that rapping is something that happened just the other day. But those guys like Roaring Lion and Sparrow were rapping a long time before. So, yes. And so I brought those people with me, the Roaring Lion, Mighty Sparrow, Lord Kitchener, or a plethora of Calypsonians. I learned the Calypso way. And for that, I have to thank Trinidad. I have to thank Trinidad for a lot of things, but for this second, let me just thank Trinidad for having provided the Mighty Sparrow, Roaring Lion, Lord Kitchener, and all the others, along with King Fighter from Guyana. So that was in my bag. when at 12 I left Guyana to come to England. I must tell you, at 12 years old, a 12-year-old kid in Guyana was a big man already. I mean, from the time you're 8, you're a big man. I have friends who were working at 10 years old. So I had to learn how to be a child again when I came to England. I had all the confidence. I knew everything apart from women. But that was to come. I want to tell you, my wife isn't here tonight, so you won't get the unabridged story. Anyway, I came with that in my bag, and as I landed, I mean, I used to hear the colonial kind of music, you know, the Cliff Richards, Sir Cliff Richard. I heard the American artists, people like Ricky Nelson, and so on and so forth. I've got a real story with Ricky Nelson, because when my dad was leaving Guyana, Ricky Nelson's song, There'll Never Be Anyone Else, was playing on the radio. I cried and I cried and I cried, and I could cry now, but we won't get into that. I heard those things in Guyana, and when I came here, I heard slightly different things. Sir Cliff was still there, he's still there now. And I heard traditional jazz. My father was playing traditional jazz already because he'd come before me. And so here it is, I'm hearing this different sound, and I got to like it. I asked my father to really teach me, because since I was 2, I was blowing this trumpet. Terrible noise. But when I came here and I picked up that trumpet, my father said, hey, you're going to learn it properly. And so I got drawn to people like Kenny Ball, Ackerbilk, Monty Sunshine, all of these people who were playing traditional jazz, because that was the music of the time. That and folk music, you know, was going on at Bungees and so on. That was what was happening. And so I got really drawn to it, and I loved the Temperance 7. The Temperance 7 had a kind of fun form of traditional jazz. I didn't know where traditional jazz came from, but gradually over a period of time and hanging with my father's friends, I got to understand that the music really came from America, and it was basically from New Orleans and all the history of it. And I got to love it even more, and I discovered Louis Armstrong, and gradually over a period of time, I would discover Miles and Coltrane and Jimmy Smith and all these, Stanley Turrentine and all these people. They became part of my bag. So I got them, and I got Sparrow, and so this started to form me. Playing the trumpet as well. I got to like Kenny Ball. There was something about Kenny Ball that was, he wasn't a great trumpeter in the realm of Satchmo and or Miles and or any one of those heavyweights from, but he had a British swing to him. He had a way, a funny way. He was like the Lonnie Donegan of the trumpet.
Right, yeah.
That's all right, isn't it?
That's a good way of putting it.
Right. He was like the Lonnie, and his band had that kind of joy about it. And so I really got into him. Midnight in Moscow became a song that I loved to play. And bit by bit, I started to get more and more into trad jazz, and then bit by bit into modern jazz. I spent a lot of time listening to records, people who were living in our home, who were musicians. I seemed to be surrounded by great musicians, and so I wanted to be one of them. And I played with them, and Nobody told me that at that age, you don't play that kind of thing, you know, or you don't think that kind of way. I was Miles. I was Miles. I dressed like Miles. You know, I had that affectation. I wanted to be like Miles.
Cool like Miles.
Oh man, yes. I wanted to be cool like Miles.
Should we play a song by the Temperance Seven then? You picked one out for us to listen to.
It's a long time I haven't heard it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which song did you pick out? You're driving me crazy.
You're driving me crazy.
All right, well, do you want to tell us a little bit about it while I cue it up?
Well, I didn't have the money to buy it, so I kind of forced my mom into going into the record shop and acquiring one of these things for me, and she did. I didn't expect it because it may have made the difference between one meal and the next. So, being the good mother that she was, she went in and she got me the Temperance Seven.
Wow. And is this the first record that
Very first record.
Wow. Well, let's have a listen.
I haven't bought too many of them, but this was the first one.
Oh, great. Please.
Now you understand why I'm such a crazy, mixed-up musician.
Well, in 1965, you co-founded one of the first racially diverse bands.
Why do you keep on saying one of the first?
Was it the first?
The damn first.
It wasn't the first. Okay. I'm always.
We just got to be honest, you know, at the end of the day.
I just don't know if I know the fact is, you know.
You don't have to know the fact, just believe me. Just.
And we have two of the equals here tonight.
Yes, indeed, my two brothers.
Where are they? We have
Pat Lloyd.
Where's Pat?
You got to stand up, man. Stand. And Ron Telemack, the baddest drummer in the land.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming. It's wonderful to see you.
They're such nice people. They don't want to take credit. And sometimes you got to take credit. I'm going to talk about you guys later. Yeah.
And so how did the band get together? Because you were you were going to be a surgeon, weren't you? That was what your father wanted you to be. You weren't going to be a musician. You wanted to be a surgeon.
Because I had, I don't know if you new people understand what having suffered from diphtheria in 1948 or 50 was. In other words, 1 out of 2 died. And I lived. So you can imagine how, when the story is told to me by my father and mother, how much I felt towards the surgeon who slit my throat to clear out all that gunge to keep me alive, you know. So I obviously wanted to return the favor in some way to the people in Guyana. And I wanted to be, more than anything else, more than if I wanted to be that over a musician, which I loved my father and I loved the music that Sparrow made and everything, I wanted to be a doctor. I would be out with these guys playing, and the topic of conversation was, they're working, I'm at school. How's Eddy gonna become professional when he's always in those books and he's talking about being a doctor and don't worry guys, I'll manage, don't worry. And eventually the music just took over. You don't know how it happens. The music just takes over. And my father went to his grave. He actually was saying, you know, boy, I mean, now that you're famous and all of that as a musician, surely you can still, I mean, you're still young enough, you could still do it. I swear to God, he went to his grave saying that to me.
That's amazing. Well, you had such early success with Baby Come Back. I mean, you had a #1 hit that you penned. How did that feel?
You can't imagine. You've got a period of time when, as I keep on saying to people, my father, who I revered, would tell me, England don't have a place for one like you. That is the truth. If he was such a great trumpet player, he and guys like Harry Beckett, Shay Keane, all these people that you'll see when you walk around this exhibit, these guys were here. And hey, nobody was paying any attention to them. I mean, the great Fitzroy Coleman, the greatest guitarist in the world, was living here. And nobody gave a damn about him. I mean, he would occasionally appear with Cy Grant on the BBC at 6 o'clock, whatever it is that they used to play, a little calypso, and Lord Kitchener came afterwards, and but all these great people were here, and they were friends and associates of my father. So he had a way of judging what could or what may not happen. And he told me quite categorically, listen, boy, I'm better than you, and I cannot change anything in this country in terms of success. And I said, but you are just not me. And he said, don't worry about that. Stay with the academia and you'll be all right. So I stayed with the academia as long as I could, but I just knew somewhere along the line, I mean, with these guys, we'd be traveling up and down the highways, working for 15 pounds a night or whatever it is, and driving it into them. Don't worry, one day we're going to. It didn't happen until we met a guy named Gene Latta, who I didn't particularly like because he had said that he could dance better than James Brown. Who nobody in this country knew about James Brown anyway, so he could get away with it. But he couldn't get away with it with me. And he happened to live right next door to me. Listen, you couldn't have gotten a better situation than that. Here is this guy who was attacking my hero. I'll tell you about that later. And at the same time, he is going to save my life. He's going to save this guy's life. He's going to save the equal's life. He's going to be the one who will introduce us to Mr. Edward Kastner, whose son is in this audience tonight. I'd like him to give him all a great... No Eddy Kastner, no Eddy Grant. It's as simple as that. I'd met a lot of people. I'd gone to a lot of agencies. I'd talked to all kinds of people. And nobody, first of all, Gene, having recognized a song, and then saying, I'll take you to somebody. Would you guys play the same song for this? And I thought, I would have given him the song. I would have been so happy to give him a song. He said, no, come. And we went and set up in Mr. Kastner's publishing rooms, where he had all the sheet music, which was a big thing in those days. And we played this song. And then they walked out, and talking and whatever it is. And then Gene came back and said, hey, listen, if anybody comes and asks you what it is that I am to you, say, manager. And I said, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I was prepared to give him the song anyway. Mm-hmm. And so they went off and they talked what they talked, and opportunity met capacity. And that, I tell everybody, no matter what it is that you're doing in this world, when opportunity meets capacity, there must be success.
Yes.
And I would like you to give Mr. Kasner.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one more song I wanted to ask you about, which is Black Skin, Blue Eye Boys. And it's just, I've always loved that song, and I was just wondering how it came about.
Okay. It's a bit of a story as well. From the time I started playing music with the Equals, my job was to make the music. The rest was to look nice, like Pat Lloyd, you know, nice guy. Got all the girls, I must tell you. Got all the girls. I didn't do too badly, but I got all the girls, right? All the other guys had little jobs to do. Who would fix a car, who would drive, who would direct us to the gig, and all of that. I made the music. And when I decided that we're going to make the first demo, because before we met Mr. Kasner, we made a demo. I got introduced to a little studio that made demos. I think they were called Studio Republic or something, in the countryside. And I'm not an easy person when it comes to the music. I like what I like, and I make it for me. Now, we got 5 people in the band, and I'm making music for me. When a time came and Gene took us to President Records, Mr. Kasner was not exactly a man for the studio. He would spend the nights at the Victoria Sporting Club, or whatever it is, he and his friends. And so he brought a guy to sit over me to make sure I didn't do anything wrong. And yes, that guy's name is Tony Clark. Tony Clark has gone down as the person who produced Baby Come Back. It's not true, I can tell you, because at the end of the day, there's only one ear that made the decision for the Equals and its music. And got my friends here, they can tell you whichever way they want. But it was that. And I was an obstreperous bastard when it came. Yes, I know what it is that I like, and I know what I like for the Equals. I die for that band. And so I remember the first night that we went into the studio for Mr. Kasner. And here's all these people, and Gene was there. First of all, we had no bass guitar. And Gene kept on telling me, you know, you should have a bass guitar. But I heard that so many times. And I said, okay, this time I relent. Get me a bass guitarist. And he would have gone to Mr. Kasner, and they would have made their arrangements, whatever it is. And I'm sitting there in the studio the night, and we're going through this song, which was called I Won't Be There. Love the song. That's the song that Gene Latta heard, and Mr. Kasner heard. And he kept on saying to me, Ed, you know, that when you go da-da-da-da, doom, on the drums, it don't sound right. I said, Gene, please. Nobody tells me what to do. Okay, man, okay, but I keep on telling you, you should do something else there. I said, Gene, we're friends. Please leave it at that. Ed, try it. So, da-da-da-da, woo. I said, you know, that don't sound half bad, but please, but please don't tell me what to do again. And so that's how it happened. And every time we would come to the studio, he would have either Gene there, Gene and this guy, and they're sitting there. And to be nice, all that was happening in the control room were two men farting to see who could fart the loudest. I swear to God. And then I'd have to go into the control room and make the final decision, because at the end of the day, who makes the final decision produces the music. But whatever the arrangement was, and this is the God's truth, at the end of the day, my name was not on it as producer. Mr. Kasner was my friend. He was my father. He called me Edward after himself. Matter of fact, he would call everybody Edward, because he was a really strong personality. And in the hands of Mr. Kasner, the equals was not going to happen. I argued with him and argued with him, and we seemed to be perpetually arguing over, why is it my name is not there? I'm the man that's making the music. Edward, trust me, we are lucky together. Don't worry, son. Okay, no worry. And so on it went, on and on it went, until, and always I was negotiating with this man who was a genius, who was an absolute genius. And so I was learning as we were doing business. And I always told him, I said, Mr. Kasner, you know, just like how you have Kasner House, one day I'm going to have Grant House. Oh, come on, Edward, you know. One day I'm going to have my studio, my offices, my God, you really mean it? I said, yes, I really mean it. And so we developed a fantastic relationship. But I still never got my name, which is what caused all the confusion in the music business, because I say one thing, other people say another thing. But with Black Skin, Blue-Eyed Boys, I never forget, I came in, I'd gone into the studio, I never made demos. I went into the studio and I made a demo with me playing all the instruments. And I came to Mr. Kasner and I said, we haven't had a hit for a while. This is going to be the biggest hit. And he said, well, put it on. You know, he's like, before it starts, he's up there, you know. And he puts this record on. He said, what's it called? I said, Black Skin. Edward, you gone crazy? I said, no, it's called Black Skin, Blue-Eyed Boys. Edward, he had a saying, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But knowing Mr. Kasner, he never made the complete statement. He says, Edward, the baby. Edward, the baby, son. I mean, come on. You're going black on me. Next thing you're going to tell me I'm anti-Semitic. I said, no, Mr. Kasner, it's just me. Edward, the baby, the red finger. I'm having nothing to do with this one. I said, well, you don't have nothing to do with any of them. He said, oh, don't worry about it, you know. But Edward, please, not this one. White people, Edward. I said, I'm going with this. Well, okay. I'm not going to have my name on this one. I said, thank God.
Well, I have a really
interesting version of this, too. This is a really interesting version, which the two of you might be really interested to hear as well, because apparently there was you had a record company performance.
Yeah, we signed with Phonogram. And Phonogram was, the head of A&R was a guy named Nigel Grange. Fantastic guy. The best executive I ever met in my life was Nigel Grange. Why? He loved music and he loved me. And because of that, Nigel decided he wanted to have the equals over at Phonogram. I went, I did a deal with Mr. Kasner and brought the equals over to Phonogram. And then he said to me that one day, he said, well, I know, after you've done the record, we'll have a party in the studio. I said, okay, no problem. And we did. We went in there, we smashed it. We had a fantastic time. Well, you hear it, right?
Yeah, you'll hear it. Let's move on now. After the equals, you had a bit of a health scare, more than a health scare. You had a heart attack and a collapsed lung, and that really changed, it seemed like a life-changing moment.
Oh, this was a really great period for the equals because it moved them from being a teeny bopper band to a band that was really saying something musically and sociologically. I mean, just being the equals was a sociological marvel in the 60s, the early 60s. And so by the 70s, and doing this, people had to look at the band totally differently. They were no longer the teeny bopper, whatever it is. And so a whole new dimension had opened. Just as that new dimension is opening, comes this is 1970, November the 17th, this record was released. And by Christmas time, I was nearly a dead man. So many things went on that I can't really divulge now. But the stress on me was phenomenal. I had made deals and arrangements for the band, and it couldn't happen. You know, I was like Rumpelstiltskin. I promised the king that I would be able to make gold, spin gold out of straw. And it couldn't happen. It couldn't happen because of management problems and all this kind of things was going on. And the stress I couldn't handle, you know, just because I had made promises. And so I found myself on New Year's Eve, 1970, with a bad heart and a collapsed lung. I'd just driven from Muswell Hill to Kenton at a speed that you can't imagine in my little car, and anything could have happened on the way. But as it happens, God's wife looks after me, you know, because he's too busy looking after everybody else. And this particular night, she really looked after me. I parked the car, went upstairs, I found myself in bed, and that was it, gone. The next thing I knew, I was in Northwick Park Hospital, nursing a bad heart and then pulling water out of my lungs, which was not pleasant. And I had to now reevaluate my life. It's not easy when you're 23 years old to have to reevaluate your life. I mean, if I had to leave the Equals, what would I do? I was not the singer of the band. And I decided I'm going to go back to Guyana and let my grandmother look after me and try and bring me back to the kind of physicality that I enjoyed before. And things were changing. The band was now under different management, and all of that was going on. And when I finally, Pat called me back and said, you got to come because we're signing a deal with CBS. Now, bad advice from the lawyers because we were signed to Mr. Kasner. And he is not an easy guy. I mean, I wrangled and tangled with him. And I was the only one who could wrangle and tangle with him. And he showed me respect. You know, we've all come to understand that respect in later years. But at the time, when you're that young, you think, oh, this guy is going to batter me or whatever. No, no, no. He was showing respect. And so I learned to show respect. And I became more and more like him in my dealings with people and even with him. So here you are, you've got a situation that is legal. And I'm out of the band now because management. And I'm seeing the logic of what Mr. Kasner is saying. You got a contract with me, boys. You know, come on. Yes, you have. And so, piece by piece, I'm watching the falling apart of the Equals. And I was on the outside. The management of the Equals was considering that they can go ahead and go on with CBS. As a matter of fact, we made a record for CBS. And Mr. Kasner won. And so everything came back to him, and the Equals was split in two. Myself here, the Equals there. It was not nice. It was not nice. But that was the reality. What was I going to do? I'm not the singer in the band. CBS don't want me. Mr. Kasner, he wants the band. And so I'm outside. I'm the guy on the outside. And I thought to myself, okay, no problem. What's going to happen is I'm going to make a record, you know, and try to go in a different direction to the Equals, the direction which I would have wished to take the Equals in musically. That's the direction I went into. And bit by bit, I decided I have to have a studio because Mr. Kasner's studio is now no longer available to me. I mean, I can if I want to pay for it. And bit by bit, I got into the studio building side of me. And I knew that something was going to happen. Even if it's not me being a success, it must be me helping somebody else to be a success. And so then this whole new Eddy Grant thing started.
Well, you put out your own solo albums, and the second one that you put out, Hello Africa, which was also called Message Man, is also getting reissued right now, isn't it?
Yes.
You're reissuing that one?
Yes. The first album that I made, which was the one with Hello Africa, because we had been to Africa and suddenly realized that Africa was not what the books was telling me, or the television was telling me. You had guys who were pilots, guys who were, you know, everything that was in the first world was in Africa. And I thought, Jesus. Fact. And it just reorientated me. I just thought, my God, I didn't know this. I'd heard this. I mean, since I was 7 years old in Guyana, there was a man, and I like to give credit where credit is due, by the name of U.C. Kwayana. Look him up one day. He would come into the village. Sidney King, that's right. He would come into the village where I was, a little village, and he would teach the little, not little, they're 17-year-olds, 19-year-olds, but I'm 7 years old. And I'm under the bottom house of my dear aunt, which is my great aunt. I'd be picking the white hairs out of her black hairs. She don't want to be old. She wants to be a fly girl, you know? So your man here would go over every Sunday and pick out the white hairs. Oh, ouch, you know, out of her head. And at the same time, Yussi Kwayana would be in the other part of the bottom house, teaching the little African kids, boys, about Africa. And I'd be listening to this stuff. I didn't know where the hell Africa was. I mean, I was a voracious reader. But I didn't know. I knew Enid Blyton. I knew Hergé's Adventures of Tintin. I knew everything from England. I even knew about snow. I just never felt it. You know, that was to come. And I'd sit there and I'd be picking, and every now and again I'd lose concentration and, "Oh, what you doing?" And I'd be listening to this man telling the guys how great Africa was, African kings, African this. I'm absolutely stupefied. I don't know what he's talking about. Not until I came to England. The first words uttered to me by a guy that was going to become my best friend at school was, "Lumumba is dead." I thought about making my autobiography titled "Lumumba is Dead," because it led me onto a train of thinking, of understanding what's happening into this world, why it is that people are fighting. Because I had no idea that people fought wars and stuff like that. I had no concept. And all of a sudden, this kid comes up to me on my first day at school and says, "Lumumba is dead." I said, "Kinel, what is Lumumba? And why is it dead?" You know, and he'd come again. "Lumumba is dead." Well, hey, I told you, I had to come and learn how to be a kid again in England, but not before I exercised what it was to be 12 years old in Guyana. I grabbed him and dropped one right hand in him. And then he grabbed hold of me, and then I grabbed him by the teeth and put one serious bite in his neck, just like Mike Tyson, you know? And the headmaster, who was up above the hall, he's looking through his window and he sees me now grabbing this kid, biting the hell out, and the kid screaming like a stuck pig. And I wouldn't let go. And he came down and he said, "What the hell do you think you're doing? You are an animal or what?" And I thought to myself, this is not fair. This guy is the one who attacked me, and I am being punished. So he took me upstairs. gave me some slippers and what I did. But I understood something. Lumumba must have been somebody important. And then he said, Kasavubu, Kasabubu. And then he asked me if I had a pet snake. Well, I'm totally out of it. But I started to understand that the rules are different in England. By the way, myself and that boy became best of friends. It's amazing what a bite can do. And so now I understood the rules. And it was a marvelous relationship because now I start to understand my teachers. I started to understand the other kids in class who had the same opinion about Lumumba and whatever it is. And I found out who Lumumba was. He was a great man. He was killed by the CIA. He was a great politician. And I started to think to myself, I want to be like Lumumba. I want to understand what it is that's happening to African people. And now I understood why UC Quayana was driving the young boys to change their names. I couldn't understand it when I was there in Guyana. But now that I was here in England, I understood everything.
Mm-hmm. So that's why. Do you want to, should we play a song from Hello Africa then?
You can.
Let's do it. I have to ask you about Coach House Rhythm Section, because the first time I met you over 20 years ago, I was talking about Coach House Rhythm Section with you, because I'm a huge fan of the work that you put out at that time during the 1970s in your Coach House Studios. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Coach House Studios? You also had a pressing plant there as well.
Coach House Studio was set up in Stamford Hill, Stoke Newington. It happened when I had nothing to do. I was out of the equals, and I've always enjoyed Mr. Kasdan's studio. And so I had to have a studio. And I took the only money that I had left. I mean, this is a very sad part of my life. I took everything that I had. I sold my Mercedes-Benz. I sold my video, which videos were now coming out. I sold my Akai video setup. I sold my PA system, which the Equals used to use. I sold everything but my soul. I even sold my soul because I went, in order to make the money to buy the final pieces of equipment, I had to, you know Rudy Walker from Rudolph Walker, who is one of England's greatest actors, was put forward to me to make a record with Rudy. Now, Rudy's not, I mean, I may not be the greatest singer in the world, but Rudy makes me look like Mario Lanza. And Rudy knows, I mean, we're friends, I can say that. A lady named K.O. Dwyer from Francis Dan Hunter Publishing House came to me and she said, Eddie, we want to make a record with Rudy. And I said, which Rudy? He said, Rudy Walker, you know, from Love Thy Neighbor. I said, okay. And who do you intend to make this record? She says, why, of course, you. I said, listen, you can't pay me enough money to... She says, well, how much do you want? Well, at that time, I needed 1,800 pounds it's one of the 2 times in my life I've made music for money. I've never made music for money. I still don't make music for money. But this particular, needs must, as they say, or else I would never have had the desk, the console that I needed from Manfred Mann. Manfred Mann's studio. He and people like Dave Hatfield and Mike Hogg owned the studio. And they had an old desk that they'd thrown out, and I needed to have that desk. So I said to Kay, okay, if you give me the 1800 now, I'll turn up at the studio. And she gave me the 1800. I went straight down to the Old Kent Road and gave it to Dave Hatfield. He says, leave that there, that's mine, so on and so forth. So it's not a moment of pride for me that I had to do that, but it gave me that part of the studio. The next part of the studio that was going to come from somebody who became extremely famous in England, which was Dave Robinson, who owned Stiff Records. Dave was broker than me. And we met up at Phonogram Studio where he's trying to do a deal for, what's his name, Parker.
Graham Parker?
Graham Parker and the Rumor. And we're talking, and he says, so I hear you want to build a studio. I said, yeah. He says, I've got some equipment. But here, he's got that Irish brogue. Yeah. He says, you got to get it out before midnight. Because tomorrow morning, first thing, man, the bailiff is coming. So I hired a U-Haul, and I got a friend of mine who is passed now, and I'd love for you to give him a great round of applause, because without him, I could never have moved that equipment. It was heavy, and it was 2 stories up. Leon Platner. Leon Platner was a jazz fanatic, as am I, but he even more so. And he played saxophone. And I said to Leon, we got some things to move. And he says, well, no problem. I said, from 2 stories above the Hope and Anchor. He said, Jesus Christ, and how many of us are going to move that? I said, me and you. And it's got to be done before midnight. Okay, let's go. And we went, and we moved this stuff. And this was going to be the backbone of my recording studio. The only factor that was missing was somebody to put it together. And that person, who I want you to give a rousing great applause to, is a guy by the name of Franklin Alfonso Agarat. The first black engineer, studio engineer in this country, and probably in the whole of Europe, was Frank Agarat. Tell anybody I said so. He was the one who enabled me to have that Coach House studio. And that studio became like a place where people of like mind gathered. And we made bad music there. He also trained this one here, Ronnie Telemac, the drummer with the Equals, into being a first-class engineer as well. And not only Ronnie, but a plethora of little black boys who wanted to get into studios to become engineers but couldn't. Frank did that. And today, there are thousands of them.
Yeah.
Absolutely thousands.
Mentioned that this was, part of, I played this song, I played Time Warp. And did you know that at the time that you're making these records in your Stamford Hill studio, that there's all these DJs in New York that are picking up on your music? People like my mentor, David Mancuso, Larry, let's give David a hand, right? Larry Levan and a bunch of people. Were you aware of that?
Yes. I used to get phone calls to our little place in Stamford Hill from Arthur Baker and Larry Levan and all these guys. And it's always, when's the next one coming? And eventually I got across to America, and nothing was happening basically here. And Nigel Grange, who was my A&R man at Phonogram, he decided to send me one day to All Platinum Records, to see what those guys were doing and so on. Wasn't impressed. I just continued making the music that I was making. And eventually, I started to hear that whole new genres were coming out as a result of what I was making. So I was very proud, very happy, and eventually Arthur came out with Walking on Sunshine and did the business. People were snatching bits and pieces from what I was doing. I was very happy, At the end of the day, all I wanted to do is to make music. And the whole thing that with house music coming off of that in America, and, it just made me even more contented. I was contented that what I was doing was something right. And America eventually had to fall. Listen, I never forget going to New York, and at the time, disco, I suppose, was coming in, was real big, and there was this guy who was a massive on-air personality in New York.
Frankie Crocker?
Who?
Was it Frankie Crocker?
Frankie Crocker. I was signed to or licensed to CBS, and they sent me to go and have an interview with Frankie Crocker. Frankie Crocker was God in New York.
He was.
Absolutely. And so I went. The girl dropped me there, and I'm sitting waiting for this interview with Frankie Crocker. And there's Frankie Crocker, there, baby, and here's Barry White. And there is Frankie Crocker again. Barry White. And I'm saying, well, when is my interview going to take place? It wasn't going to happen. So eventually I called this girl who was like his gopher. I said, hey, I've been dumped here, and Frankie just keeps on talking about Barry White. And when is my turn? She says, I'll go and see Mr. Crocker. And I'll come back and tell you. So she's come back and she says, oh, Mr. Crocker will see you now. I said, okay. I got up and followed her into this dark room. And he's got one of these things, and he's, and baby, this is Frankie here in New York City. WBLS. And I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for the interview. And here's Barry White again. I mean, I could have hated Barry White, but I know how it must have felt for him at some stage. And I was just about to get up and say, listen, Mr. Crocker, I'm gone. You know, I don't put up with this kind of crap. And he turned around and he said, what's your name again? I said, Eddy Grant. Okay. And he's got this tissue, and he's squeezing out a boil on his face, you know, and he's, and then he presses a button and he calls the girl, hey, come on in here, I need to get something for my face. She comes running in, and she goes out and and all this time, no interview. I'm sitting there, and I'm just, when do I get up and walk out? And then he says, when Barry White has just finished, he said, what do you say your name was again? I says, Eddy Grant. And he pressed his button on it. Yeah, his brother. I said, Eddy Grant, we got brother Eddy Grant in here today. Say hello to New York, Eddy Grant. I said, hello, New York, Eddy Grant. He says, okay, thank you. I said, well, what happened to the interview? That was it, man. You know? And he goes back, we got the Delphonics here right now. And I said to myself and New York's not gonna get on. Yeah, I mean, you can't tell me you don't have 2 minutes to talk to me. And I walked out, and I was never going to go back to New York. But then, you know how things go when you say never. One day, I got word that this Electric Avenue was doing well, and they needed me to come over, and I went to, well, right across America, and ended up in California. We played the Palladium, and everybody was glad to see me, man. I saw Danny Kessler came to, he's another story. And there was my brother. There was, what's his name again?
Frankie Crocker?
Frankie Crocker. I just had to do it to him. Frankie Crocker. Coming down the passageway of the Palladium. Eddy Grant! Oh my God, brother, how you going? And you were there. And I said, Mike, get me out of here fast. You know? Hey, where you going, Eddy? Where you going, baby? And sorry, Cranky. You can't do that to me and get away with it, you know? So there.
Well, your songs are making a very big impact, and they sounded, you know, so different to a lot of the other things that were happening. This album in particular, this is the album really, as far as your solo material goes, is the one that was kind of the big turning point for you.
Yeah.
It was your first real big commercial success.
Thank God. Because by then I had the factory. We were sending records to Nigeria, which somehow got to like me. And the Nigerian government, realizing what was happening, because everybody was now on reggae and Virgin Records and Island Records and all these people. I was selling more records than them. I was selling more records than Motown in Nigeria. And so, thank you. And Motown just happened to be the thing that Berry Gordy was my hero, and I wanted to be like Berry Gordy. And to have surpassed, I was selling more records than the whole of the Motown catalog in Nigeria. And so I went eventually and took these records, and the people liked it. And I was tying up the pressing plants in Nigeria after a while. But I had a pressing plant in England, and I was pressing, I had maybe 20,000 records in the warehouse. I couldn't give them away in England. I'm going to the clubs, nobody wants them. I'm going to the boutiques, so, you know, they play the music in the boutiques and stuff like that. And I'm saying, please, would you like one of these? And would you play one of these? And they didn't. I thought, Jesus, I got 20,000. The government in Nigeria has banned importation of records. Money was coming out and not going back in and all this kind of thing. And one evening about, I don't know, 8 o'clock, I get a phone call. Eddy, mate. Who's that? It's Chris. Chris who? Chris Hill. Don't you remember me, man? You know, I'm with the mafia. Oh yeah. I said, so what's going on, Chris? Ed, you got a great records. You're gonna get a hit, Ed. I said, what record are you talking about? He says, it's called something like Funkline. I said, well, I don't have no record named Funkline. Sorry, Chris. Ed, I'm telling you, white kids in Slough are jumping in the air to this friggin' music. It's about, I know, forever long, but they don't stop. He says, Ed, there's a guy called Kelly, an Indian boy, who's, it didn't add up. I said, doing what? He says, he's playing the hell out of the record, and it's gonna be a hit. Ed, please, come in and see Nigel. You know Nigel loves you. I said, okay. But I think you got the wrong record. Funk? I don't have nothing to do with funk. But I'm not even thinking, because this pissing record has got me 20,000 in the warehouse in New Cross. And I can't give them away. So I go in to see Nigel Grange. Who, Nigel, if you're going to applaud anybody here tonight, applaud Nigel Grange. He's the greatest. He's the nicest young man, and he was white, and he was Jewish. I don't know what it is about me and whites and Jews, but he personified everything that a record man should be. And I went in, and I'm saying, Nigel, I mean, we did it at Phonogram, Funky Like a Train and this and that. Yeah, but this is different. He says, Ed, if Chris says it's going to be a hit, it's going to be a hit. Play it. So he puts on this record, and he says, Jesus, Ed, it's 13 minutes long. You're going to have to cut it down. Well, again, that thing about me and people telling me what to do with my records. I says, Nige, thank you very much. He said, where you going? I said, home. Home, I'm going home. He says, Ed, be reasonable, man. 13 minutes, you know, ain't nobody, they ain't gonna play it if it's 3 minutes. But, you know, I says, no, Nige, I'm not gonna cut it down. Please, Ed. Okay, I look at it. Give me 3 minutes. I said, 3 minutes on 13 minutes? He said, it's a reality, mate. Other than that, you ain't gonna make it. So I said, okay. I went back to the studio, and I cut all night. I'm cutting. It's terrible. It's like operating on your child's heart. And all I can see is disaster. I ended up at 2 minutes, 59 seconds. Check it out. And 2 weeks later, the blasted thing, a record called Living on the Front Line, was in the charts in England and going up and up. And I said, God, after 7 years, Stevie Wonder talks about 7 years of bad luck. I had 7 years of bad luck. And after 7 years of bad luck, a record like Living on the Front Line, I mean, you must listen to the lyrics. I couldn't believe that they wouldn't play Baby, I Love You. They wouldn't play Baby, Come Back really and truthfully. And they played Living on the Front Line.
I think we should have a quick listen to it. Not 13 minutes, but...
Yes. I couldn't believe it.
It's an amazing song. I'm going to have to use my glasses on this one because it's the second cut in.
Oh?
There we go.
That record saved my life, proverbially. That record, I pray to that record because I was so close to the edge that it was not funny. I mean, 7 years, you know, and I got a wife and children, and maybe I was being selfish, and so many people helped me to make that studio a success. First of all, there was a gentleman by the name of Colin Smith who actually built every component of the building. He's passed now. I'd like you to, in honor of him, give him a round of applause. I personally fetched 28 skip loads of mud, detritus, rubbish, crap, and everything out of that yard in order that that studio, and it stands there today. One day they'll put a plaque on it. It was a community center. It was, I mean, and people tried to stop me building it. Eventually, I had to bring the courts, from the courts to that location to prove that we were not making a nuisance of ourselves in the community. Today, everybody's proud to say, hey, this happened in Stamford Hill. But at the time, everybody was fighting it down, you know? And a lot of great music from every division, every country, every whatever, from Bangladesh to worked in that studio. And I'm so very, very happy and proud to know I had something to do with it.
Well, I'm going to move forward to, we were talking about Electric Avenue before, and your big commercial success that even impressed Frankie Crocker. He couldn't wait to see you. I mean, this is when I discovered you, because I was like 14 years old when this came out. And of course, Electric Avenue was a huge hit in America. #2, just like it was here. And it really...
Let me just correct you, because I'm a man who... I like to do it right. America had 2 charts, Cashbox and Billboard. In Cashbox, it was #1, and in Billboard, it was #2.
Okay.
Okay?
So the top 40 was Billboard, yeah. Yeah. But I loved this song when it came out, and it was one of these songs that, kind of like Prince when Doves Cry, it's just so different than everything else. You just go, what's that? What's that? I mean, this is astronomical success that you have with this record. And it went platinum in America, which is no small feat back then, especially when it was the real numbers, not the numbers they've changed it to in the last few years. What did that feel like for you? Because you said you just had your 7 years of kind of bad luck, or hard times maybe is a better way of putting it.
Bad luck.
Bad luck, okay. Bad luck
Stay with Stevie.
And then you gain some footing, Walking on Sunshine is a hit. What did it feel like when Electric Avenue came out?
I had a relationship with CBS. Them having turned me away before. I'd had a deal with them, but they couldn't sell Walking on Sunshine. They said it's island music. It's, and I don't mean island the label, I mean island, the islands, you know? And so they got rid of me. And I came back to England and did what it is that I do best, make music. At the end of the day, that's what I'm about. I'm not about whether it's going to be number one, number two, it doesn't matter. Because they're all going to be number ones one day. I absolutely believing in that. Because I've put my life into this. It's not something that is number one or number two or I want to get a hit. People who want to get hits don't make records like me. If you want to make hits, you listen to the record company executive, you listen to this, you listen to that, you got this person coming and remixing. All that bullshit is what goes on. I don't make records like that. When I made this record, I was in Barbados. Can you imagine? Yes. I was in Barbados. There, that's me. And it was a record that was way overdue. The record companies that I was licensing to were threatening to take me to court because I had taken their money. And as far as they were concerned, I was just another black man from Jamaica who takes the money and goes and does a deal with the same record with you know, that was going on. All of that was going on. But here I had moved and gone to Barbados. And my family was still in London with all my accoutrements and stuff like that. British Airways, if you're in here, I'm sorry. British Airways had lost all my baggage, my everything, my songs. Every part of me was lost. I had a toothbrush, I think, in a bag. And no songs. I had to now go find intellectual material. And at the same time, I'm turning cement and sand and helping the guys to do up this old plantation house, which had got massive historic value, but I didn't know. I just was there trying to make a studio and a house. The word came that I'm going to be sued for non-delivery. And so I had to write real fast. And I'm living out by a place called Sam Lord's Castle, which is on the ocean. And this little house, myself and the guy who was Frank Agarat, and the other chap who was the construction boss. We're all living in this place, and I'm writing songs. I'm going into the hammock and looking out into the ocean, and they're just coming. You know, the first song that came was I Don't Want to Dance. The second song that came was Electric Avenue. The third song that came was War Party. And the fourth song that came was It's All in You. That's the order in which these songs came to me. The studio wasn't finished. The guys are working in there. They're plumbing, they're plastering, they're doing everything that would make this place. And I ain't got time. So I had to put together the equipment quickly, Frank Agarat, put together equipment quickly. And oh, by the way, Marcia Barrett from Boney M wanted me to produce her, and she is coming over at the same time. So I'm having to work on 2 albums at the same time. When do I sleep? I don't know. But sleep I did sometime, and I managed to put together this record. The first song became the first song. The second song, and so on and so forth. And I was convinced I was going to get as many hits off of this record as Michael Jackson was going to get off of Thriller. I honestly believe it, and I still believe it, because the only thing that stopped War Party being a hit was the war in the Falklands. The BBC banned my song. And even then it came into the charts, you know? So I have absolute faith in this record. Electric Avenue was the second, and a guy came into the studio who was teaching me to play squash. So we played squash at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, every afternoon. And he came in, he was from the Lake District, and he came in and he said, "What's that?" I said, "That's a song called Electric Avenue. It's a new song." He says, "My God." He said, "Well, look, I'm only an engineer. I make roads and whatever it is." He says, "But Eddie, that song is going to be such a big hit amongst white people." And he's white.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, you should know." Yeah. "Can we go and play squash now?" "Oh, yeah. Off we went. And Frank Agarat stayed there working with this song. You know the sound that goes, rrrr. Well, that's the only time myself and Frank Agarat ever had an argument. I loved it. He hated it. And he says to me, "Ed, come on, man. You do it right. You don't do that shit." I said, "What do you mean shit?" He says, that's distortion." I said, "But I love it." And we had the little tussle. I said, "Listen, you don't have to turn the knob. I'll turn it." "Oh, okay. Go on then. Go on, mess it up. Mess it up." And he's looking at me. I said, "Right, run the tape." He ran the tape. "Boy!" He's looking at me. "For real?" I said, "For real." "Okay." And it's going along. Electric Avenue. He said, "Ed, it sounds like shit." I said, "Man, but it's my shit." And when the record was finished, the same guy came in. And as he's walking up the passage, he's heard this thing go, rrr. And he came into the studio. He says, "Ed, what was that?" I says, "That was Electric Avenue." He says, "I told you, it's going to sell millions to white people." And so it did.
Yeah.
You know, so it did. This record is really a special record to me. I've made lots and lots and lots of records. Special record to me.
How about... I was actually going to play "I Don't Want to Dance."
Oh,
Do you want to play that, or should I play Electric Avenue? Let's play Electric Avenue. I had the.
They're all great to me.
But now I want to hear that sound again.
Yeah.
Because in a sense, you know, having a sound like that almost becomes an earworm. It almost becomes a hook. It becomes something that people focus on. Oh yeah, that song that does this. It's something that kind of, you know, wakes them up out of their reverie.
They've been focusing on it for a long time.
Yeah.
It's 40 years.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's have a listen to it then. Okay. Such a great tune.
Yes.
I want to fast forward a little bit, actually, just because I have my eye on the time.
Oh,
and I
dear.
definitely want to talk about this next song, Gimme Hope, Joanna. And as mentioning before, you know, you had this huge commercial success, yet that did not dampen your real spirit, the socio-political consciousness that you often channel throughout your music. And this song in particular is a really great example, this anti-apartheid song, which was actually banned in South Africa, wasn't it? Do you want to tell us how this song came about?
I was working on the album File on the Rock, because I always have this problem, people just writing it off, my stuff off as reggae. They don't even know what the hell they're talking about, you know. It ain't reggae, it's an amalgam of everything. It's an amalgam of me, and I'm an amalgam of everything. I'm doing this record called File on the Rock, and I've done it. We're at mixing stage now. We're finalizing everything. And something goes wrong with the synth that I'm using. And I said to the engineer, listen, man, you fix that. I'm going over, get a cup of hot chocolate or something in the house, and call me when you're ready. So I go across, I don't know, the house is about 50 yards away from the studio. And I've gone across, gone into the house, and my wife is sitting there watching television or something. And I said, you've got to be very careful with the wife, how you ask, you know. She's in here tonight, you know. And I said, listen, could you make me a hot chocolate? I used to drink a lot of hot chocolate at that time. And she says, okay, which is nice. She said, okay. And she went to make the hot chocolate. And I'm watching the TV. And up comes this program on South Africa, on this terrible, heinous, I mean, I knew about it before, obviously, since I was into Lumumba and Kasavubu and all these people. But I'd never really ever seen Alexandra and those places that the most heinous nonsense was going on, with bulldozers bulldozing people. And I said, wow. I'm sitting there, and the more I'm getting into this thing, the tears is coming down my face. And the wife just happens to come with the hot chocolate. I said, you're not crying, are you? I said, no. I just got some eye. And you know how it is. Men got to do that. And so, well, here's your hot chocolate. And I said, I'm not staying here. I'm going to go across to the studio. So I'm sipping and going across to the studio. And as I turn the corner of the house to go on the path, something's just saying to me, give me hope. Give me hope. Give me hope. And the same way when I wrote Baby Come Back, I'll demonstrate it to you. You're walking along. In the case of Baby Come Back, I was walking along Tottenham Court Road, coming from Selma's, where I'd taken my amplifier to get fixed. And I'm going like that. I won't walk in front of it. It's bad manners. And I'm going like that. And then all of a sudden, I recognize these squares on the road. I'm going, baby, bang, da, 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 like that. But in the case of this particular song, I'm walking, I got the cup in my hand, and I'm going, give me hope, Joanna, give me hope, Joanna, give me hope. I'm saying, why the hell am I saying Joanna? who the hell is Joanna? And I got to be careful because if it's a girl that the wife don't like, I'm in trouble. So I'm give me hope, Joanna, give me hope, Joanna. Till eventually I get to the bloody studio, the door, and I open the door. And this thing hits me like, bam. What are you singing about, Ed? You're singing about Johannesburg. I just seen it. I just seen Soweto. I just seen Alexandria. I said, wow. Whew. Into the studio. I said, Glenn, who was the engineer, I said, Glenn, take off the tape. Take off everything that you're doing. Give me the guitar. And I got the acoustic guitar and a jing, 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 jing. Ready? Yes, go. And in next to no time, that song was written. Give me hope, Joanna. Give me hope, Joanna, before the morning come. Everybody sings morning. I don't know why they sing morning. It's morning. Give me hope before the morning come, because the great Nelson Mandela hadn't come out of prison yet. And everybody in the world was thinking, there's going to be some mourning going on because them guys are going to kill some white people in South Africa and all of that. And then out comes Nelson Mandela and says, cool it. That ain't going to happen. The greatest statesman I think this world has seen is that man. And I didn't have a record deal at the time. And so again, I had to be spending my money, making the video. I made 2 videos of Give Me Hope, Joanna. I went to Serbia, where they have great technicians and so on, but it just wasn't right. And I came back to London. Do you remember Wildebeest? We went, and we met this guy, Lance Kelleher, who had just made a video for Captain Sensible. And it was so interesting. I asked, do you make a... And he was a big fan too, you know, as was Captain Sensible. It was amazing. And so he said, yeah, he'll do it. And so I had to spend my money to make this video. I was absolutely certain Nelson Mandela was going to come out after this record, because something really strange happened in South Africa, and you can check it until today. White people from whom they were saying this thing is so bad for white people and this and that, white people love this song. They play it at every wedding and every party and whatever it is. And the government banned it. So you had both sides of the racial divide, loving this record and loving Nelson Mandela. And for me, that vindicated everything. I love this record like I love Electric Avenue. It had to become a hit. England was not anti-apartheid. America was. How did this record get played? It's just like Living on the Front Line. How did it get played? My brother took acetate. You know, Dave, that they don't play acetates at the BBC. And some errant DJ took it up in the morning, played the acetate, and was saying, oh, this is Eddie Grant. He's in Barbados. He's on the beach there with some beautiful girl called Joanna. And the phone started to go. And you tosser. Can't you hear what he's saying? And then you realize, uh-oh, but it was too late. The record had gone. One play, Mr. Kasner always said, Edward, the first 10 seconds, and you got them, The baby is out with the bathwater, you know. And so it happened. They couldn't turn it back. It is in America that they were able to turn it back. Having won the MTV award against Bad, it won the MTV award for Best Video of that year.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And it's not stopping. They use it now for everything. The Gimme Yope. They gave me all kinds of, the people gave me, how can you use this song for Yope? I said, simply because Yope is in a whole different era, and the kids didn't know this song from this era. So all of a sudden, it's come, and the kids take to it, and it's given it a whole new life. The German football team took to it. I mean, you can't imagine the amount of use this song gets. And I'm so happy because a good song should never die.
Let's have a listen. Well, there's just one more thing I'd like to ask you about, because we're going to have to wrap it up in about 10 minutes.
Whoa.
But I can't let you leave without talking about a genre of music that you invented, ring bang, which is on your jacket there and on your hat. Can you tell us about ring bang?
Well, it's not quite true, but true nevertheless. The record Black Skin, Blue-Eyed Boys heralded in the music which they call soca. And I've gone to great lengths to correct people because I know the chronology. I understand. I have the entire calypso transitioning to soca, transitioning to ring bang. Have we got time for this shit? One day, I was approached by a gentleman from Trinidad who wanted to resuscitate the Soca Monarch competition. Trinidad loves competitions. And so, knowing the history, because he was here in London, he asked me to come and speak on it. And I was in the studio at the time with a guy called Black Stalin, making his album, yes. And so I called him and I said, listen, I can't make it, but what I'll do is I'll write a dissertation on the beginnings of soca. To some of the aficionados, they say Hello Africa was the first soca. And I said, no. 1969 is when I wrote Black Skin, Blue-Eyed Boys, and in 1970 recorded Black Skin, Blue-Eyed Boys. Now, I have got the almost entire catalogs of calypso music from 1933 till almost now. Wouldn't I know when something changed? And it's there for history, because I don't have to prove anything with regard to these things. It's there. The data is there. Follow the data. They have gone to great lengths to disprove this issue about soca, the beginnings of. So I left it alone. I went to Trinidad, and the guys, my friends, started to mock me. Oh, after the thing came out, oh, A man who created the music, created the people, created the this, created the that. I said, guys, please, stop. I never said I created anything. I said I conceptualized and brought it into being. And you can prove it if you want, or you can disprove it. But I said, eventually what's going to happen is that I'm going to do something else. I'm going to bring a new music with a philosophy. Woo!
Well, we did have a really long conversation, Eddy, and I just have to say, it's just been wonderful talking to you. We could speak for hours, and there's so much more we couldn't cover. Your career has just been absolutely spectacular, and it's still going today. This is the thing. There's been records that play songs. There's been loads of other records that have come out, even in this century. What is next for Eddy Grant?
More music. That's what I do. That's what I do. I mean, I have a great life. I got a great wife. I got great... I got great friends. And yeah, and I do many things. I enjoy everything that I do. I mean, it's a charmed life. I mean, I've had the ups, I've had the downs. I know about illness, and I've overcome it many times. So God obviously means that I should stay around, or God's wife. She loves me. Obviously means that I should stay around to do whatever it is that has to be done. And so with that, the baby.
Listen, after the tremendous success with the Equals, Eddy, you disappeared for a long time. How come? Where were you?
Trying to build a solo career all over again. I went to the Caribbean and started my own label called Ice Records. And we started selling records there and anywhere that anyone... I'm a bit breathless, and I
know you were performing, I know.
Pardon me. We started selling records anywhere where people have our records, and culminating in this.
You've had hits just about everywhere in the world, but making a comeback in the pop business after an absence is a tricky, a fairly tricky thing to do. How did you accomplish it then?
Well, in 10 minutes. Well, we set up the label, and we went to the various radio stations in the various countries, and did very much what I'm doing here now, talking on radio and TV and so on, and letting the people see that I am what I say I am. And eventually they bought the records. Magical.
Now, you are your own manager, agent, publisher, arranger, songwriter. You do your own backing band. You record in your own studio. Do you not trust anybody?
I trust everybody. But in this business, artists never get a chance really to come back after they've been. And having been once, been successful, and lost that success at the hands of other people, I thought, but I couldn't do much worse myself. So I decided to do it myself.
Were you ripped off?
Well, it's not called ripping off. It's called shrewd business deals. And I had quite a few shrewd business deals done with me, against me, and so on and so on.
Yeah. And you quite rightly, you reckoned you couldn't do much worse yourself.
Well,
You've done a darn sight better indeed.
Thank you.
Now, from your dress and your general, are you Rastafarian?
No, I'm not. No, I just It's got a long story behind it, but I just decided to grow it like that.
How long does it take to grow all of that?
10 years.
10 years?
Don't try it.
Does it have to be specially tended to?
Only washed and left to its own devices, then it grows.
I see. Yeah. But you're not Rastafarian.
You're not gonna try.
No, I don't. Listen, for heaven's sake, it's a bit too late for me now. I can assure you. I couldn't be bothered with all the arranging and everything. I know you don't drink
Or smoke.
or smoke
Or take drugs.
or drug
Or coffee.
or
tea.
coffee or tea. What do you drink when you drink?
Water and the occasional fruit juice.
And is this from religious belief or from health point of
No,
view?
just I like it that way.
You must be 1 in a million in the pop business if you don't drink and don't smoke and don't drug and don't drink tea and don't drink coffee, for heaven's sake.
Bit rare, yes.
Yeah, I see. What have you got in mind now next for your development in the pop business?
I'd like to do a couple more things, at least. I'd like to act in a film, a proper film, not just a pop thing. And I'd like to do maybe some serious film music. I've had 1 or 2 ventures, one of which is coming out in January. It's a film that's been made by George Harrison's company with Billy Connolly and Michael Caine.
Wow.
And I've done the music for that.
Great.
So there are 1 or 2 things like that I'd like to do, and I'd like to be more successful in more places.
Well, you're doing pretty well at the moment, mind you, and you've done pretty well from the 60s. Did somebody say to me tonight that when you do business with Brazil and with the Iron Curtain countries, you don't take money in exchange, you take goods?
Well, if we could get money, it would be all right, but we normally in those places can't get hard currency, so we take whatever they've got to give. I mean, there's wine in Yugoslavia and marble from Brazil or wood from Guyana or that sort of thing. We try to sell records in any country that we can, regardless of politics or whatever it is. And normally in those places, there are financial problems and so on. We try to sell our records reasonable to the people, and we take what they give us.
And what do you do with the marble that you get from Brazil?
Use it.
For what?
Well, whatever. You put it on your floor or sell it back to someone who wants to buy it.
Oh, and ditto with the wine from Yugoslavia?
Oh, well, since I don't drink, there's a lot of wine there hanging around.
Yeah, and does that work out pretty well?
Yes, it does.
You're really in the stock business, in the commodities business.
Well, we have to be.
Yeah, but you're still keeping an eye on all yourself.
That's right.
Listen, just before you go, would you say hello to all the people who turned up today at the Alex?
On which camera?
On that one there.
Oh, well, I'd like to say a big hello to all of you people who turned up today. Sorry I couldn't be there in the place itself. We did come, and we got to the back entrance, and there were a lot of people there, and we were told by the police, look, you can't go in there or else there'll be a riot. I think the best thing to do would be to do exactly what I'm doing now, which is saying thank you for coming and all that.
That's all right. Nice man. Eddy Grant, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed, Eddy, for joining us. Good luck to you.
Congratulations. That is a giant hit. It's so nice to have you here. Before we start talking, would you please introduce me to the gentleman you make music with, starting with the bassist right here.
This is Billy.
Next.
That's Philip.
Hello, Philip. All the way in the rear.
This is Guy Eckstein.
Hi. And lastly,
And Jack Allen.
thank you, Jack, so much. You know, when you go to sit down and make a theme for a motion picture, do they come to you and say, make this, or did they assign you a song? How did it happen?
Well, somebody comes on to my business manager and says, we'd like Eddie to do this. And he gets on to me and says, Ed, we'd like you to do that. And I say, no.
Then how does it come to be?
They try and tempt me.
Did they show you the picture?
Yeah, they gave me a short cut of various parts of the movie. And then I'd sit down in front of a video machine and gradually try and put it together.
That's a change of pace. You know, I mentioned to the folks over in the stands that you set up your own studio, your own company in England, and then you pulled up roots and went to Barbados. What kind of music comes out of Barbados? I have a feel that, you know, maybe it's only going to be island music. Where does the talent come from?
Well, in Barbados, we listen to all kinds of music. We hear things from America, from England, and so on. And mostly the music happens in the hotels and so on. But occasionally we get an artist who comes forward who is brilliant. I have one guy who's called the Mighty Gabby, who does a cross between calypso and funky music, and we're producing something like that right now with him.
Who were your musical influences? Who did you listen to when you were a little boy?
Was I ever?
Lo, those many years ago.
I listened to people like Chuck Berry. He was the original influence in my life. And then James Brown.
Oh, you two of my very closest people I've loved. Eddie, please come back and visit. Are you going home now to Barbados?
Yes, I am.
No more work?
No more work.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Even when I'm working, I like to play squash, I like to play cricket, and I like to play soccer, which we don't play too much here. Well, I know exactly what it feels like to be an overnight success. You work 15 years, slog in the most uncomfortable places, and maybe one day, like now, you become successful. Overnight, wham.
Working so hard like a soldier, can't afford a thing on TV. Deep in my heart I abhor ya, can't get food for the kid. Good God, we gonna rock.
America's taken a long time to catch on to my music, primarily because the radio stations couldn't put me in any particular category. They wanted to probably put me into soul, and I wasn't exactly that, and they wanted to put me into reggae, and I wasn't exactly that, or country. Now I suppose that with the success all over the world, they've said, well, we've got to find somewhere to put this guy, and here I am, wow.
How do you feel my love? How do you feel it as I walk away? How do you feel my love? How do you feel it as I walk away? Need to
My early influences were people like Chuck Berry and Muddy Waters and Howling Wolf, Sonny Boy Williamson, James Brown, that sort of thing. And I listened a lot in the early days to Latin music, which crossed the borders of our various countries in the Caribbean. The Equals were the first band I ever played with. It was a time in my life when everything was all innocence. I'm still innocent, I may add. But I have learned to look after business in the music business over the last 15 years. Because if you don't look after business, in the end, it will damage your art. And I don't want anything to damage that.
Oh, mama, mama, you got me living on the front line. Ooh, what kind of man could I be if I can't talk about what I see? Oh, they tell me got to beware. Take the little money and go.
Living on the Front Line was made when I was in England at my studio, which was called the Coach House. It represented for me a very tough time in my career. It was when nothing was really going too right for me, and there was a tremendous pressure on me to make my music what people call commercial, because at the time it was a big disco boom, and everybody who was close to me and involved in some way was saying, you know, maybe you should compromise. And I think that Living on the Front Line was the greatest lack of compromise I've ever made, and probably one of my greatest success.
Well, you got me living on the front line. Oh, you got me, mama, living on the front line.
I think Rock Against Racism, as anything against racism, has to be something good. The actual end result, one can never be sure of, but then again, I can apply that to things that I write about and say myself. You're never quite sure of the extent to which you can affect any kind of social change. The philosophy behind everything that I do is be not afraid. It's there for you if you want it. And everything has subsequently proven that philosophy to be right.
I believe I can tell you the first woman in your life, how many children you've had, how many birthdays you had, and even tell you where you got your shirt at.
Carry on.
You think I can tell you all that?
I don't believe you.
I'll bet you a drink I can.
Ah, no.
All right, well, I'll tell you for free.
True.
First piece of ass you ever had is your own ass. First woman in your life is your mother. You've only had one birthday, the rest is celebrations, and I know your ass ain't pregnant to have any kids. And you got your shirt on your body.
That's a unique twist to
Go like this.
Go like this?
Shit on a stick.
We're going to shoot an interview with you here later on.
Oh,
You want to move Eddie back, Rob?
Hey,
You want to move back a little or what?
I only charge $1,000 a set. You want peaches to get out of the way?
Yeah, would you mind just giving us a little room, and then we'll... How's that? That can be okay? Right on the end of there. Let me move this.
It's not down the pillow, but it'll do.
Move a little bit to your left.
Eddie or me?
Your left or my... Oh, sorry.
John, am I out of frame here? Yes.
Phew.
So
So we missed you at the airport.
I hear. Sounds like I missed you at the airport.
Yeah, there was like a couple of flights. They rearranged you.
Yeah.
Got you in on an earlier, later flight, from what I understand.
Madness. Just
So,
absolute.
yeah, it must have been. You came in from London.
Yeah.
Wait, 1 second. You came in from London, and you're living in Barbados. How about some opening tour comments for us? This is the first night of your tour in this country. How's it feel, Eddie?
It's good. It's pretty good.
Not sure yet.
Not sure yet. The weather is good.
It's great that you're starting the tour in a place where you're pretty much used to the climactic. We were down in Barbados recently. It's equally tropical.
Oh
there.
yeah, lovely place, eh?
Absolutely. We didn't get to stay too long. We had to get right back to Trinidad.
All right.
There's a lot of rock and roll happening in the Caribbean. What's your feeling about that? What have you experienced down there? Things are starting to open up.
Well, there's a lot of music in general down in the Caribbean. A lot of people believe that because it's in the Caribbean, there's only black music down there, you know, but it's pretty cosmopolitan. I mean, you can hear things like Journey and Air Supply and, you know, Olivia Newton-John and people like that down there.
All over the radio.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the Flock of Seagulls concert in Trinidad? And the Fix?
Huh?
That's
No.
where we went. We ended up in Barbados. Yeah, Flock of Seagulls, the first rock and roll, quote-unquote rock and roll concert ever
Right.
in Trinidad.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
So that just happened to us in June. It took place in June. We went down there to shoot it for MTV.
Was it good?
It was wild. 6,000, 7,000 people showed up.
Yeah.
And it was something. The fact that you spend most of your time in London now, or is it Barbados?
Barbados.
And how is it that you're able to conduct a music career from Barbados?
Very simply. I don't think that you have to be anywhere in particular to make music. Communication is very good. And I have some very able people working for me.
Does it require many trips for you to...
I don't make any trips. I don't like airplanes. And it's only when I've got to fly that I actually do fly.
A man like yourself who has made some really introspective comments about the music industry in general, I find it surprising that you let other people, apparently they're good people of course, but how do you delegate your responsibilities to other people to carry on for you in London or the U.S. on your behalf?
Well, they're professionals and they do what's expected of them. They know what I want and what I like, and they carry on with that very much in mind.
And you're happy with everything they're doing?
Very much so, because it's paying off.
It really is. How does it feel to have this surging force now in your career?
Well, it's very good, because we've worked towards it for a long time, and everything has come together very, very well. Couldn't ask for better, really.
What are you expecting on this tour?
A lot of excitement. Obviously, it's the first time the American people would have actually seen me live, and I have a lot of preconceptions to break down and get rid of. But after we've done this first one, I should hope that we'll be on smooth sailing from then on.
This is nice that on the first date, the venue is a small club like this. How does it differ from the rest of the tour? Are there varying sizes of halls you'll be playing?
Yeah, generally it's the small kind of venue that we're going for. More intimacy between artist and audience to create this nice ambience that we're looking for.
It's so much better than having to project. I mean, I know ideally you'd like to play...
Oh, the time is coming for that, don't worry.
Right, you don't want to stay in clubs all the time.
That's right.
But I guess the first tour, for that immediacy
Yeah.
with the audience, is going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hell of a show here. They started selling tickets to this concert long before Electric Avenue was as intensely received as it is, so I don't know what to expect here tonight. They're going to be out here by the pool. I
Oh,
think.
that'll be nice. We'll dance in the pool.
Dance where we have to. A lot of people that have been hearing Electric Avenue and, of course, Killer on the Rampage is getting so much play. They're going to think of you as a reggae artist, a Rastafarian. Can you verbalize your distinction? I know that you yourself have said, you know, I know what you've said about those two things, but verbalize the distinction for us.
I don't see myself or my music in terms of any category. I think I'm a musician, I'm professional, and those are the only categories I want to be in, professional and musician. With regard to Rastafarianism, I'm not a Rastafarian, as much as I'm not a Catholic or anything else. I'm just Eddie Grant, and I want people to accept me on that basis. Whether they do or they don't, that's up to them. You know, people just try to shuffle you into an easy little corner, and I don't really want to be shuffled. I won't stand for it, folks.
Well, you've been successful at not doing that. I mean, your combination of island rhythms, funk, R&B, all of what we have known to come from the roots of rock and roll and R&B, you defy categorization. Who is it in the industry that keeps wanting to do that? Which group of people is it, do you think, most responsible for putting you into a bag? Or
the people who have to play the music to the people, and the people who have to write about music for the people, they've tried to do that, especially so here in America. But of late, I've noticed that there's a general slackening of that policy, so I hope it's going to remain.
there is a backlash of those categories now because so many bands are mixing elements. So I, for one, am real happy to see that, and you're breaking it down too. Did you expect this reaction to this album?
I think it's a good album, and I made it to be so. I've made a lot of albums, well, not that many, but quite a lot for me. And I did it in the same frame of mind, hoping that people would accept it and they would be successful, but obviously they weren't as successful as Killer on the Rampage. One hopes and prays that when you make any music that it becomes successful to this sort of degree, or even more.
What was the one move that you've made in the last year or two that you think was responsible for the success of the album? Did you make the record deal? Was it the production deal or the relocating in Barbados? What do you think was the most significant factor that got your life together, made you feel strong again to want to start this new aspect of your career, or this stage of your career?
I made I Don't Want to Dance. And that completely clinched it for me internationally. It gave me the artistic recognition and the money, basically, to spread my wings into areas that I would never have been before as a corporate entity and as a musician.
And you were able to do it all yourself. That's got to be so damn rewarding that you held on to what so many bands let go of.
Yes, I was lucky.
I read a list recently of all the places your albums are just kicking ass in different countries. Tell me that list. I mean, I can't even remember. There was a list of 10 countries or something.
Oh, everywhere, basically. We've been successful in all throughout Europe, all throughout Africa. I think now Killer on the Rampage is the most successful record of all time in Africa. Just about everywhere. The last places for us have been America, Japan, Italy, and Australia. And now we've got a success in Australia, we've got a success here in the United States, so now it's left for Japan and Italy to come in. Come in, Japan and Italy.
Come in, breaker.
Your time is up.
Do you really play every instrument on this album?
Yeah.
How does that feel to sit in on and overdub and do all of that and to hear the final mix?
It could become very boring, but that's what I know. I've been doing that basically all my life,
And so you develop a special kind of discipline, I suppose, for the studio and with the instruments and that.
Wait one second. Start that over, you were saying.
That's Japan and Italy.
They're waiting for it to finish this gig first.
What was I saying?
No, about the feeling of playing, the discipline you've developed playing.
Oh yeah, over the years I've always been playing most of the instruments on my music. That's got to be Australia.
This is Australia, Sean. Great. Sounds of the streets.
Lovely.
This is referred to as Electric Avenue, this A1A. by the
Oh,
way.
I see. That's why he's giving me problems.
That's right.
All right. Over the years, I've played all the instruments on my music, and as such, it's given me that extra discipline with regard to the studio, where you have to, if you're playing all these instruments and overlaying different textures on top of the music, you have to know when to stop, so to speak, and that is the special discipline that you acquire. If you don't, then you just musically masturbate and it's all over.
And yet you travel with a 14-piece band.
I travel with an 8-piece band.
An 8-piece band.
Yes, 14 is coming. Yeah, because obviously I don't want to be a man on the stage with 10 synthesizers and tape recorders and what have you. That's terribly inhuman.
You'd be worn out.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, any time, who was the first one that really started doing it? Was it Paul McCartney that started doing the every instrument on his own album?
Les Paul.
That's right, he was the one before Paul. Les was doing that for quite a while. Tell me about the new video that MTV is playing. What's the title of it?
It's I Don't Want to Dance.
That's the one they've added.
And that record was the one that, as I said, opened all the doors for me, because it's a great pop song. It defies, again, categorization. It's just a nice song.
That must be fun for you to mess up the heads of the program directors around the country. They don't know what format. Now, what is this, R&B or this AOR?
It's Eddie Grant. They're just going to have to make a little section for me.
That's great. That's great. Did you produce the video? What's your approach to videos? And were they both done simultaneously, Electric Avenue and I Don't Want to Dance?
Yeah, they were done about the same time. My whole approach to video is turn up and stand there, let the director do his job, because I don't know anything about that particular medium. I stand in awe of Steve Barron, who is the director of most of my videos. He knows exactly what he's doing, and so therefore I leave him alone.
In London, these are produced?
No, these were done in Barbados.
Yeah. It's funny that I don't even have MTV, and so there's a lot of the videos that I talk to the band and we don't get to see them. So people heard about both of these videos that you've done. Are you thinking in a visual sense, though? You say you leave the director alone, but surely you're bringing interpretation of your lyrics to the director.
I don't do very much with regard to the videos at all. I'm not one for taking any credits that don't belong to me. You may not like them. Everything is, I only do the audio, and Steve Barron does the visuals.
What is your feeling on the result or the impact that video is having on the music world? Are you excited about it?
It's very important. It's a great vehicle for music, for successful music especially, in as much as that in a lot of instances the artist can't get to a lot of places at the same time as the record is happening. So therefore he can become a little bit more fragmented.
It seems to apply to the economics of the 80s that we have to live with bands getting, like you say, being in 10 different places and we'll send that cassette out.
That's right, and it makes sense.
Do you find yourself intrigued with video enough to maybe start working yourself into knowing the ins and outs of it? Are you interested enough or do you see that as a separate part of your music and you'd leave that to somebody else?
Yeah, I leave it to the professionals.
Yeah.
And maybe one day if I do become a professional, but that's something else again. But right now my interest is with music and only with sound.
How are you reacting to all the press you're going to be getting on this tour? I mean, this is only the start of it, and you've probably been interviewed 10 times before I even got to you today. Is that going to be hard for you to deal with, or are you psyched and ready and you know how to handle that?
Well, I've had to deal with press people, media people in general over the years because I'm an overnight success. It took me 15 years to get here. So I've been dealing with that for quite a while.
How old were you in England when you had success in the 60s? I mean, you're only 25, 24 now.
Well, thank you very much. The success came when I was still at school. I must have been about 18.
So was it a specific song that had hit the charts? Or were you playing in school and had a band? I don't know that much about your
Oh, I was with a band called the Equals. And we sold maybe 15 to 20 million records worldwide in the late 60s. The first success that we really had worldwide was Baby Come Back, which has been since covered by people like Bonnie Raitt here in the States, so maybe you know that.
A band called Player did that too, didn't they? Baby Come Back?
Yeah, but a different one. Yes, I looked it up. You know, and over the years we made various records, were successful in various places, but they sold a lot.
Well, this is exciting. Let's just go over the itinerary here, because this story will be going out to the rest of the country who will be expecting to see you. How many cities are you covering stateside before you leave? And tell me
I think it's about 34. I don't know how that breaks down, but I know we're on the road for a long time, so keep an eye out.
Yeah, say something to the people around the country as a preliminary. Do you have a special Eddy Grant invitation?
Well, it's taken me a long time to get to you, so don't let's be any longer getting to each other. Be at the shows. They're going to be something special, I hope.
I think they will.